President Trump, I did not vote for you.
Actress Scarlett Johansson recently made headlines with her candid comments about reproductive rights. She addressed concerns about healthcare access, including birth control and abortion services through organizations like Planned Parenthood. Her statement caught attention for its directness about political policies affecting women's healthcare.
About exercising her right to choose. I'm talking about making choices for her body and her family, choices regarding birth control options, breast exams, and of course, cancer screenings. As most of you know, Planned Parenthood has been under attack for many years now for another service they thankfully offer, providing a safe place for legal abortions, should it be the case.
Donald Trump remains a central figure in these discussions, but the spotlight shifted to Johansson's public stance on these issues. She specifically mentioned Ivanka Trump, noting the contrast between Ivanka's privileged position and the challenges many women face. Critics have pointed out Ivanka's relative silence on policies affecting women despite her role in the administration.
I want to be able to support you, but first I ask that you support me. Support my sister, support my mother, support my best friend and all of our girlfriends, support the men and women here today that are anxiously awaiting to see how your next moves may drastically affect their lives.
Johansson emphasized that political support requires accountability. Many women are concerned about how current policies will affect their futures and rights. There's particular worry about younger generations of women potentially growing up with fewer rights than their mothers had. This moment represents more than typical political back and forth. It highlights ongoing tensions about healthcare access and personal freedoms. Johansson's comments have sparked significant conversation that continues to resonate with many Americans.
Support my daughter, who may actually, as a result of the appointments you have made, grow up in a country that is moving backwards, not forwards, and who may potentially not have the right to make choices for her body and her future that your daughter Ivanka has been privileged to have.
When celebrities like Johansson enter political discussions, reactions are mixed. Some view her involvement as courageous advocacy, while others see it as unhelpful celebrity intervention. Regardless, Johansson's approach was notably direct, showing she intended to take a firm stance rather than offer vague support.
Election year, when claims of sexism dominate the race for the White House, Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka works to stay out of the political spotlight. In our conversation, we explored the gender issue and what it means to be a working woman. And even away from the campaign trail, her family is putting its own stamp on Washington with the...
Ivanka Trump's political journey has been a careful tightrope walk, appearing uninvolved while deeply embedded in power. As elections loomed and sexism dominated headlines, she tried maintaining distance from controversy despite her central role in her father's administration. For years, she's navigated the Trump political landscape, earning the complicit label while projecting an image of casual participation.
A woman's right to choose what to do with her body shouldn't just be a woman's rights issue. It's the year 2016, and this is a human rights issue. A woman's right to choose is a deeply personal one and should not be a part of anyone's political platform. It has nothing to do with politics in the slightest. It is about honoring and respecting women and about upholding the law.
Her defining moment came when she dismissively shrugged off concerns about complicity, a move reminiscent of teenage indifference while still benefiting from her proximity to power. Meanwhile, Johansson confronted this directly, emphasizing that women's bodily autonomy shouldn't be political bargaining chips, but fundamental human rights. Ivanka's political evolution remains fascinating. She began as the composed daughter of a man known more for controversial tweets than policy substance. Her initial stance suggested non-involvement, the neutral observer sipping sipping coffee amid political chaos. This changed dramatically when she relocated to Washington and positioned herself as her father's key advisor, moving from the periphery directly into the center of power.
Election year, when claims of sexism dominate the race for the White House, Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka works to stay out of the political spotlight. In our conversation, we explored the gender issue and what it means to be a working woman. And even away from the campaign trail, her family is putting its own stamp
The
on
Trump
Washington.
Organization.
Would you like to be a successor?
It's not something I prioritize. My brothers and I, early on, we said to one another that as a collective, we could do far more than any of us could do individually. And I really believe that. So for me, title is largely irrelevant. I want to show up at work and love what I do and be able to work on projects that I'm passionate about.
This is your office.
Despite repeatedly claiming political disinterest, Ivanka emerged as one of Donald Trump's most trusted confidants, handling everything from international diplomacy to managing personal presidential matters. For someone who supposedly avoided politics, she consistently found herself influencing decisions affecting millions of Americans. While publicly prioritizing family over politics, she seamlessly integrated into the administration's core. She portrayed herself as the business-minded daughter who happened to be present while wielding significant influence. When questioned about ambition, she emphasized teamwork over titles, yet involved herself in decisions far beyond advisory capacities.
It is time that we all pay it forward. It is time that we all stand with Planned Parenthood for our sisters, our mothers, for our friends, and for our daughters. It is time we all stand united. So this conversation is taken off the ballot, so to speak, and out of the mouths of politicians, remaining a private and personal one between a woman and her partner, her doctor, and herself.
Her transformation from observer to participant became almost ironic. After dismissing the complicit label, she became a central administrative figure, proving she was no mere bystander. Whether at global summits, shaping policies, or defending controversial positions, she wasn't just present, she was instrumental, reaping the benefits of power, influence, and access throughout. While Scarlett Johansson openly championed women's bodily autonomy rights, arguing these decisions shouldn't be controlled by politicians, Ivanka's advocacy remained ambiguous, seemingly more concerned with protecting the Trump brand than driving meaningful change for women.
A few years before, my brother Hunter and I were living with my father, and at 15, I had been working in the entertainment industry for 8 or so years and had been fortunate enough to be eligible for private health insurance through my union.
In public appearances, Ivanka downplayed her influence, describing her White House work as merely supporting her father behind the scenes. Yet if background work meant quietly shaping policies, influencing key decisions, and managing the administration's public image amid controversies, her role was far from minor. The contradiction was clear, positioning herself as a women's advocate while her political involvement rarely advanced women's rights and instead primarily protected Trump interests.
We hear the phrase complicit, that Jared and Ivanka are complicit in what is happening to the White House. Can you just weigh in on how you feel about that? There have been articles, there have been parodies. What do you think about that accusation?
If being complicit is wanting to be a force for good and to make a positive impact, then I'm complicit.
Ivanka Trump perfected the art of political involvement while maintaining an illusion of distance. For years, she cultivated an image as the reasonable Trump, less volatile than her father yet operating directly alongside him, pretending to be an outsider while exercising considerable influence. When directly questioned about her White House role, she responded with calculated deflections. Asked about being complicit, she reframed the accusation. If being complicit means wanting to be a force for good, then I'm complicit. This statement was as strategic as it was meaningless, vaguely justifying her position while avoiding genuine accountability.
I feel so incredibly fortunate to be able to redirect the spotlight and shed it on Planned Parenthood and the invaluable work they do and the services they provide to hopefully relieve some of the stigma surrounding women's issues and to be the face of this conversation that must be had. Thank you very much.
Johansson, however, refused to accept this hypocrisy. As the Trump administration faced mounting scandals, she directly challenged Ivanka's carefully constructed persona. She cut through layers of PR-friendly messaging to expose the underlying reality. While the Trump presidency unfolded amid controversies, nepotism, and self-interest, Johansson spoke plainly. This wasn't about governance, but about power, branding, and treating the White House like reality television.
How old-fashioned, this idea that behind a great man is a great woman. What about being in front of that person or next to them or standing on your own? You know what I mean? It's such an old-fashioned concept that to be this powerful woman, you can't appear, you have to be concerned with like you're going to feel that somebody's going to think that you're that you're bitchy or that you're, I think powerful women often, they get concerned with this idea that they're going to be seen in this unforgiving light and, screw that. It's so old-fashioned and it's so uninspired and
Known for portraying heroes on screen, Johansson focused on real-world advocacy. She used her platform to support women's rights and highlight Planned Parenthood's essential work, demonstrating that genuine advocacy requires action, not just carefully worded statements. Her approach stood in stark contrast to Ivanka's. One woman standing firmly on principle, the other strategically navigating behind the scenes to maintain influence while avoiding criticism.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about Ivanka Trump actually very recently. I'm sure you saw the interview she gave with Gayle King yesterday, but it was kind of baffling, I have to say. It was really baffling. And, I think you can't have it both ways, right? If you take a job as a public advocate, then you must advocate publicly, right? You advocate for publicly. And yesterday...
This is where the contradiction peaked. Ivanka embodied the outdated idea that influential women work quietly behind powerful men. Scarlett's counterpoint was direct. True influence isn't found in shadows, but in standing firm, speaking openly, and refusing to compromise principles just to remain in proximity to power. Johansson didn't just critique Trump's flaws. She highlighted how his presidency resembled reality television, complete with scandals, drama, and ethical conflicts playing like an endless soap opera. Meanwhile, despite Ivanka's efforts to balance political influence with deniability, the complicit label stuck regardless of her polished image.
Said something which I found particularly disappointing, which is that she felt that the greatest change that she was going to, the biggest influence that she would have or the change that she would make actually would be behind closed doors. Nobody would actually know that she had made this change. I thought to myself, well, that's empowering.
Her Gayle King interview only highlighted these contradictions. She wanted the prestige of public office without the accompanying responsibility. As Johansson pointed out, true advocacy isn't whispered behind closed doors. It's fought for publicly. Yet, with each attempt to distance herself from controversy, Ivanka became more entangled, whether offering empty assurances or avoiding accountability.
Vote like your life depends on it. Or vote like your children's lives depend on it. Because they do. And to all the women and all the men with daughters and sisters and mothers, everybody, no matter how you identify, now is your chance to vote against Donald Trump.
I am not okay with his temperament, and I sat in the room, so I actually could feel his rage throughout his testimony, and I felt like he was acting as though he was a political operative. He was very volatile. I've said numerous times, if a woman had acted like that during a line of questioning, she would have been considered unhinged. Also, let's talk about this op-ed for a second. If a woman had written that op-ed apologizing for their behavior and saying, I'm so sorry, I was emotional, but I was there as a mother, as a daughter. I mean, the double standard is unbelievable.
Johansson wasn't alone in her stance. Other celebrities joined the chorus of criticism. Lady Gaga urged Americans to vote like their lives depended on it, particularly regarding protections for vulnerable communities. She didn't merely criticize Trump's positions on women's rights, LGBTQ+ issues, and immigration. She actively campaigned against them, demonstrating that silence wasn't acceptable.
Some people want to win races. Other people want to be president of the United States and change people's lives. It's about the intention. I believe that will reveal itself. People are smart. And I am hopeful that our nation is coming together. There's a lot of young people that really, really love each other. And if we can reestablish that human connection and get everyone to start speaking, I believe this divisiveness can change.
Lady Gaga did more than just criticize from the sidelines. She leveraged her massive platform to directly challenge Trump's polarizing policies. Beyond her bad romance fame, she used social media and public appearances to highlight how his administration's decisions harmed vulnerable communities. Her message transcended partisan politics, focusing instead on rebuilding unity in a fractured nation. For Gaga, the goal wasn't just political victory, but meaningful social change.
Gone down. I mean, to the extent that President Trump had to be elected. And I think with that came a sudden fear, an urgent fear in our country that women were feeling. And if not fear, then rage. And then we watched him put people in positions of power that were trying to systematically roll back a lot of rights, not just women's rights, but a lot of rights. So that, I think, propelled the success of this collective power that we are trying to harness right now.
Melania witnessed firsthand the anxiety and outrage Trump's presidency generated, particularly among women. She spoke against his administration's attempts to reverse hard-won rights, emphasizing that resistance wasn't about opposing one individual, but fighting a system threatening to undermine progress. Together, Johansson, Gaga, and Melania demonstrate that celebrity influence extends far beyond entertainment. They've used their visibility to challenge power structures, elevate marginalized voices, and demand accountability. Their stand against Trump exemplifies how entertainment and activism can effectively merge, proving that remaining silent in the face of injustice is never an acceptable option.